Good Thursday morning, guys. We're going to go over 4 problems from last night's homework. So I think that's half of the homework that you guys had. So there's probably about 10 of you that weren't done yet. I looked at a couple of them, and I'll look at the rest here on Thursday. So I'm going to show 2 ways to do this first problem, both the way that I was doing it and the way that Mrs. Condell's done it. So depending on whose video you've watched, you're going to learn this year in algebra that there's more than one way to do something. So right away, if I look at this first problem, number 17, what we need to find a common denominator. So my common denominator in this case, if I start with my 5s, obviously I go 5, 10, 15, 20. Just doing multiples of 5. And my multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30. And my multiples of 20 are 20, 40, 60, etc. And you'll notice that my 20s all match. So that is my common denominator, is 20. Okay, so I got a couple things I can do. I can change this entire problem here on 17 and make them all have a common denominator of 20. Okay, because if I have a common denominator of 20, I can clear them out. So if I do that, what can I multiply these all by? Okay, so in order to get to a common denominator of 20 right here, I would have to multiply by 4 over 4. So if I multiply both the top and the bottom by 4, I'm going to get a new problem of 8x over 20. Okay. And then here, I have 9/10. To get rid of that, I would multiply both of these by 2. So if I do that, I now have plus 2. That gives me 18 over 20 when I multiply both of those by 2. And then my other one, I already have a common denominator of 20, so I can just drop that down. And now, since all 3 of these match, they would all cancel out. So, and the reason we can do that is because 4 divided by 4 equals 1. And of course, the same thing with 2 divided by 2. That equals 1. So that allows us, I'm really just multiplying these problems right here by the number 1. And you guys should know if we multiply by 1, it doesn't change the value of something. So now these all cancel out. So now I'm left with just 8x plus 18 equals 7. I can subtract my 18. Okay, and that gives me 8x equals negative 11, and divide by 8. And that gives me x equals negative 11 over 8, or negative 1, because 8 over 8, and 3/8. Okay, second way to do number 17, and if that one works for you, that method works for you, you can kind of ignore what I'm doing here, but this is just another way. If I know that my common denominator is 20, I can actually multiply everything, there it is, by 20. Okay, and the reason that's going to all simplify out, so if I multiply everything by 20 on the top row, what I end up with is 40x over 5 plus 20 times 9 is 180 over 10. And then I already know right here I have 20 on the bottom, so I'm just going to leave that as is because I know it's going to cancel here in just a second. Okay, so 40 divided by 5 gives me 8x. 18 divided by 10, well, my zeros would cancel, so then I would just add 18. my 20s cancel. That gives me 7. So then I subtract 18, and you're going to see here pretty quickly that this is the exact same problem as what we just did. It's just a different way to do it. Okay, divide by 8, and x equals still negative 11 over 8, which we already said was negative 1 and 3/8. So 2 ways to do that number 17. You have to find the way it works best for you. On to number 18. Okay, so I'm going to kind of skip here. If I counted by 2s, I could do 2, 4, 6, etc., etc., etc. I could do my 8s and do 8, 16, 24, and my 3s. Hopefully we know that 3 times 8 is 24. Over here it was 2 times 12. So 24 is my common denominator. Right? So my common denominator is 24. So how do I get to a common denominator of 24? Remember, this one right here is actually 2 over 1. So how do I get to a common denominator of 24? Well, I would have to multiply this first one. I would have to multiply by 24 over 24. All right, this next one here, 3t over 8. How do I get to 24 there? Well, I'd have to multiply the top and the bottom by 3. By 3. And then I'm over here. How do I get 2/3? How do I get a denominator of 24 there? I multiply the top and the bottom by 8. Okay, so now we'll carry out the math here real quick. So 2 times 24 is 48. And I got my 24 on bottom. 1 times 24. My next one, that's going to equal 3t times 9, 9t. And again, should be over 24 if we're doing that right, 8 times 3. And then we're going to subtract 2 times 8, 16. 3 times 8 is 24. So since we have the same thing top on the bottom here for all 3, they would cancel out when we're doing this problem here. So that leaves me with 48 equals 9t minus 16. So I add 16 to both sides. 9t, 48 and 16 equals 64 divided by 9. Okay, we know that 9 goes into 64 7 times because we have 9 times 7 is 63. So it goes in there 7 times with 1 left over. Okay, it's just doing the reducing of 64 over 9. You could also leave it like that. Okay, either way, and that's going to equal your t. Okay, now we're on to clearing decimals. So in order to clear decimals, you need to multiply by whatever it's going to take to get rid of that decimal on all of them. So here I got to multiply by 2 spots because every single spot I'd have to move it 2 times. Well, in order to move the decimal 2 times, I got to multiply really everything by 100. Okay, so really, in essence, that's what we're doing there when we move the decimal. And remember from our previous problems, as long as we do something to all 3 things, we're good to go. So if I move the decimal 2 times, multiplying by 100, then it's going to just clear out. And I can do this exact same problem. So now I have 785 minus 215c equals 2075. Okay, so now probably going to need a calculator, it looks like. Because the only thing is that when you clear these decimals out, now you're working with a much bigger number. If you don't mind working with decimals and you're good with the calculator, have at it. So I have to grab my phone here real quick. And I have 2075 minus 785. And that should have left you with 1290. Everything else drops down, so I have negative 215C. So then I take that 1290, divide it by 215, and I'm going to get an answer when I divide by negative 215, showing my work there. And I'm going to get an answer of a negative 6. Okay, that's 1290 divided by negative 215. Okay, over here, number 22, last one kind of from our homework last night. Since I have 2 spots here, I only have 1 spot here, but I got 2 spots here. So I have to move it, do the same thing to all of them. So I'm going to have to move that 2 spots, and that's going to add a 0. Okay, so I multiply again, since we're moving at 2 spots. Okay, we're going to move 2 spots, so that leaves me 175t minus 450 equals 775. So now we just have a 2-step with big numbers. So I add 450 to that. That's 1225. And my 175t drops down. Okay, and I take that 1225 and I divide it by 175, and my t equals 7. Okay, and you could come back up here real quick if you wanted and checked it, especially if you got a calculator handy, which you should have on all tests and quizzes. 7 times 1.75. So I'm going back to my original problem. 7 times 1.75 is 12.25, and then I subtract 4.5, and that equals my answer of 7.75. So even though I didn't show any work over here, I did check on my calculator. You should be checking your work on your calculator whenever possible.